Hello and good morning. How's everybody doing today? This is Rich Harshaw from Monopolize Your Marketplace, and we are here for straight talk about lead generation. You know, this is an interesting topic. I know that a lot of remodeling contractors are interested in the topic of lead generation, obviously. This conversation we're going to have today really, it stems from a lot of discussion that I've had internally with our staff, externally with some of our prospects and some of our customers. And what I want to do is I want to really sort of address some of the major issues that I see really as being stumbling blocks to people getting the lead generation right in 2015. Clearly, things have changed dramatically over the last 10 years. I've had other webinars where I've talked about those changes in a lot of detail. And I'm really not going to focus on this webinar about, hey, things have changed and here's how they've changed and why they've changed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and just talk about 5 issues that I feel really you need to understand them in order to maximize your lead generation. Here's what we see a lot of times. We see this pretty frequently, particularly with the smaller companies, the newer companies, but even in some of those middle-sized companies. Now, let me tell you what I'm talking about when I'm talking about contractors. Smaller companies are either startups, newer companies, companies that do up to about $1.5 million a year. I consider these small companies. The middle-sized companies are companies that are about $1.5 million on up to about $5 million a year. And some of you may be listening and thinking, well, geez, you know, $4 or $5 million a year, that's a pretty good-sized company. Well, it is, but there's also companies that are bigger, $6, $7, $8, $10 million, $12 million, $60 million, $100 million. And typically what we're seeing is those companies that are on the larger side of the spectrum, especially when you get up there in the 10 million plus range, they're companies that are doing all of the things that I'm going to talk about here right. And you might have a little bit of a disconnect there and say, well, geez, I don't know if I really want to be a $15 or $20 million company. I don't know if I have the wherewithal to really manage that kind of a company. It's not the point. I'm not telling you to be a big company. I'm not telling you to run any certain size company, small, medium, or large. You run the company that you feel comfortable with. Here's what I am telling you. There's certain elements of lead generation that work. The large companies have them down pretty darn good. And some of the smaller and medium-sized companies could use either a refresher course or just some additional information. And that's what I'm here to give you. It all comes down to having prospective clients and clients of mine that come to us, talk to either me or people on my staff, and they're trying to generate leads. They're trying to run a contracting business without really some of the foundational, fundamental stuff down. So that's what we're here to talk about today. I do get a little bit, what do you call it, prone to ranting a little bit, because I feel very passionately about these things. I see what works, I see what doesn't work, and my only goal in this webinar today is to get you to find some ideas that will work for you to help you get where you're trying to go, okay? But before we get into the, excuse me, the webinar itself, I'd like to recognize our sponsor, MarketSharp. As you can see on here, Contractor CRM Solutions. We are now celebrating our 10-year anniversary of working with and partnering to a certain level with MarketSharp. Tim Mush is on the line with me. He'll be talking to us a little bit later, give you a quick overview of some of the things that MarketSharp can do. If you are currently not utilizing MarketSharp, if it's something you're not that familiar with, we'll give you an opportunity to learn about it a little bit later in the webinar, and would strongly encourage you to look at this software program very, very carefully, because it can make a huge impact on your business. A lot of the things that we talk about at Monopolize Your Marketplace are content and strategy related. Here's the types of things you should be doing and saying, here's how you create that. Here's a strategy for how to attack the marketplace. We're going to do that today with lead generation. I'm going to take you through an incremental process of what you should be doing, how you should be approaching it. But when it comes to a tactical execution of a lot of your marketing elements, direct mail being a major one, we're going to talk about that today, and Tim will talk to you about MarketSharp and how it can help with direct mail, but also in terms of managing your prospects, managing your customers, having everything that you need to know in terms of your numbers and your relationship with your customers and prospects at your fingertips. MarketSharp is in a class of its own in this industry. It was built from the ground up specifically for contractors, and that's why we've been with these folks for 10 years. It's a really good fit, our company and their company. Some people get us confused. They think Monopolize Your MarketSharp. marketplace sharp, they get a little confused. We're two separate companies, but we are very, very in tune with one another in terms of helping contractors get optimal results from their marketing, okay? I am going to give away some books today. I'll give away 3 copies of my book, Monopolize Your Marketplace. You must be present to win, and I will give them away randomly to people who are on the webinar at the conclusion. We're going to go for a little bit, well, probably about an hour today. I will take some Q&A at the end of the session, and we will proceed from there. Okay, here's what we're going to cover today. 5 no BS topics that we're going to talk about in terms of lead generation. First of all, budgeting. And when I say budgeting, I'm talking about real budgeting. Where should you be spending your money? And how much money should you be spending? We're going to cover that. Next, dividing and conquering, pay-per-click advertising, direct response advertising, and branding. And these are things that, again, I just know this from talking to lots and lots of contractors. There's a lot of confusion about how do I do this? How do I handle this? What is branding versus direct response? I mean, people have a general idea, but when it comes to, here, I'm going to spend my money and I'm going to execute something, they get a little gun shy and they get a little hesitant. And I'm going to clear that up for you today, okay? So let's talk about budgeting first. Where do you spend your money? How do you spend your money? How much money should you be spending? Here's the biggest problems that I see typically when it comes to budgeting, okay? And I'm going to do just a quick technical check, make sure everything is working okay before I get too far into this. I have been known to get going, and my technology isn't showing on the screen right, but I think everything's in check now. So let's see, not spending enough on lead generation. This is clearly number one, first and foremost, the number one reason that companies don't grow as fast as they want and they don't achieve their goals is they don't spend enough. I was in an interesting marketing conference last week where a lot of very large contractors were in the room discussing their marketing. It was sort of an open forum. It was a non-disclosure signing kind of an event. And part of the exercise of that meeting, about 10 contractors in the room, was going through each of the contractors' budgets and seeing how much money they were spending, where they were spending their money, what percentage of sales was being spent on their marketing. And there was an interesting company in the room. It was a very large company. They were in the $70-something million range. In fact, they had grown from about 71 million to about 77 or 78 million over the course of a year, which represented just under a 10% growth. Well, interestingly enough, there was another company in the room that was experiencing 20 to 25% annual growth. And the interesting thing to note between the two companies, and again, sometimes I know it's a little bit tricky when I start talking about large companies, and a lot of the smaller companies sort of tune out and they say, well, that's not me. But here's the interesting thing. The company that's growing at 20 to 5% every year, they strictly budget 10% of their sales to marketing. And when you start getting in the upper millions, 60, 70, 80, 100, 110, those dollars become very large, and it becomes tempting to want to stick some of those dollars into your pocket and say, well, we'll cut back from 10% to 9 or 8 or 7. Well, here's the interesting thing. The company that went from 71 to 77 was spending about 6.8% of their revenue on marketing. The other company was spending 10. And if you look at that, think about this for just a minute. I don't have these numbers on a screen or anything, but think about this. If you're doing $71 million in sales and you spend 6.8% on marketing, that's $4.8 million. But if you were to spend the full 10%, you'd have an extra about $2 to $2.5 million. Now, here's the question. What could you achieve with that extra money? And you say, well, that's big, and that doesn't really mean me. But here's what I'm trying to ask you. Scale it back to you. Let's say you're doing $1 million, okay? Take a look on the screen. I think you should be spending at least 10% minimum. Now, it used to be 10% minimum was one of the things that people could get away with. You may find early in the game it may be 12 or 14 or 16%. You may need to spend even more if you're just getting off the ground. If you're doing $1 million in sales, that's $100,000 in marketing. That's $8,300 a month. Now, why am I putting this on the screen? And you might be looking at this thinking, well, no, duh, and I don't know why I got on some webinar for some guy to tell me this. I'm going to tell you why. Because we deal with million-dollar companies every single day of the week, and rarely are they spending this kind of money. Usually they're trying to scrape by, and they're growing, and they're you know, they're being real aggressive. They go to some home shows and they do these things to generate the leads, and they get as many sales as they can. But when we look at the budget, it's lacking, and the ability to take it to the next level is heavily dependent on your ability to spend those dollars. If leads are $250 each, the $8,300 is going to generate 33 leads. What you need to do is create your budget and commit, I think I spelled it wrong, to spending the money. Now, here's some of the problems that I see. Here's one of them that's big time. You know what I find is one particular flavor of companies, and we run across it frequently. It happens a lot. These are companies that have been in business a long time. They're usually run by a little bit older people that have been in business for maybe 15, 20, 25 years, and they're usually doing somewhere in the $1 to $2.5 million range. But they rely almost strictly on repeat and referral business. So let's say it's a $2 million company spending 3% on lead generation. It's only $60,000. Most of their sales are coming from the repeat and referral. Now, here's the thing about repeat and referral business. Obviously, it is a good thing. Obviously. However, it is extraordinarily difficult to scale that business and get larger. Now, if you're a $2 million business spending 3% on lead generation and consistently churning within your customer base to get repeat and referral, and you stay around $2 million, and that's all you ever want to do is $2 million, number one, fantastic, good for you. Number two, why are you on a webinar learning how to do it better? If you want to grow it, if you want to hit 2.5, and you want to hit 3, you want to hit 3.5, you want to hit 4, then you've got to invest those dollars, okay? The companies that are only spending 3%, they tend to stay the same. When the recession comes, they shrink down a little. When the recession ends, they grow back a little. Maybe they even get a little bit bigger if there's some pent-up demand. But you have to spend the money if you're going to grow. Use the budget, up the budget to 10% and start to grow. So this company now goes from a $60,000 budget to a $200,000 budget. That's $140,000 extra divided by 12 months is $11,600 extra per month. What could you do with that? And I'm actually going to answer that question in detail on the rest of this webinar, okay? So here's another problem. Hoping that the internet is going to magically solve all of your problems. You say, well, that's not me. Well, that's good because it is a lot of companies. Just because there's a ton of traffic online doesn't mean you know how to get it, right? Most of your internet leads are going to come from people who are already looking for you. It's like saying that leads that are going to call you are phone leads. They're not. They're people that found you from somewhere else. You have to create your own lead engine. SEO is going to enhance that over time, okay? SEO is going to enhance your lead generation, but you cannot start out as a newer company or a smaller company or a company that needs leads and is struggling for leads and hope that your SEO is going to solve your problem. It's not. Let's go through this quick evaluation. I've shown this on other webinars, but I think it's important. If in 2005 you placed an ad and you'd had 10 people call, what happens when you place the ad in 2015? Well, you place the same ad, and here's what happens. 4 people that used to would have called you from your ad, they now searched online before they ever even see your ad. So if you don't have a strong search presence, you're not going to be seen by these people. You're not even going to have a chance. You're automatically out of the running for 4 out of those 10 leads that you used to would have gotten, okay? Are you with me on that? That can be through search engine optimization. That can be through pay-per-click. I'm going to talk about pay-per-click here in just a few minutes. 2 of the people are going to see your ad and call just like they used to in the old days. But here's an interesting thing. 4 of the people are going to see your ad like they used to, and they're going to look you up online so that they can learn more. Some of them won't convert into a call because of conversionability issues. 1 of them will become a lead, so now you get 2 or 3 calls instead of 10. Now, I've used this slide before in other webinars to talk about the necessity of online marketing, how it's not optional anymore. But I'm going to take a little bit different spin, a little bit different approach on this right now. And here's what I want you to realize, okay? Are you with me? Let's go here. Look at these numbers on the screen. We've got 6 out of the 10 that still saw your ad, that still saw your marketing, that still encountered you somewhere that was not online, and they went to your website as a result, or they called you. And if you're not spending the money to drive those people to your website, see those 4 at the bottom? If you don't spend the money in direct response advertising or in branding advertising or in intelligent mailings, all of which I'm going to cover later on this webinar, then you automatically miss out on those possible leads. So here's what happens. We get some of these companies, particularly some of the smaller ones, $1 million companies are notorious for this. And here's what they do. They come to us and they say, hey, you've got these great services. You can create this awesome website. It's a converting website. You could do some search engine optimization for me. You can put together some pre-positioning. And they pay us $600, $700, $800 a month. And they say, wow, we're spending all this money. Where's all of our leads? And we look at them and we say, well, what else are you doing? And they say, well, we're not doing anything. We're expecting this to make us money. Here's what you've got to understand. That first $1,000 you spend on your marketing every month, whether it's website development and or maintenance, the search engine optimization money that you're spending, the pre-position materials that you're putting out there, those are all things that make the other 90% of your budget actually work better, okay? Do you see the difference? But if you're not spending the other 90%, the 10% doesn't really do anything. It's like having a souped-up car that looks really cool but doesn't, you know, have an engine in it. You need a lead generation engine, okay? Let's give you some straight talk about the internet. Your website must convert lookers into buyers. We're going to talk about that in more detail when we get to the pay-per-click section here in just a second. SEO is going to take time. There's no such thing as instant gratification. I want you to understand something very clear about search engine optimization. It is 2015. SEO as a discipline has been going for about 15 years now, and it's been going really, really strong for about 5 to 10 years. Here's what that means. It means if you're sitting in the middle of a large city, let's just randomly say Atlanta as a large city that came to mind for no particular reason, and you sell windows, sidings, and roof products, and you're just now getting on the bandwagon of saying, hey, I need to do some search engine optimization. Here's what you need to know about that. There are probably 30 to 50 other companies that have already beat you to the punch, that are already ahead of you in the race. Now, the race can be defined as a marathon, 26 miles. All that really means in the metaphor is it's long. It takes time. And these are companies that got a 1, 2, 5, 8, 10, 15-mile lead on you. And you start running down back here at the starting line, and you're running really fast, and you've been training, and you've got the new shoes, and you've got your sweatsuit, and you're looking all cool, and you're running. And after about 2 miles, you look up and you say, how come I'm still losing this race? And the answer is because everybody else got a huge head start on you, okay? It's going to take time. It isn't going to be easy. This is something you need to understand. I don't care who's doing your search engine optimization. I don't care if it's us, Monopolize Your Marketplace. I don't care if it's social marketing. I don't care if it's some guy that you hired to come in and do it for you part-time, full-time, or any kind of time. It's going to take time. This is called straight talk about search engine optimization. All the guys that are promising you that it's going to take X number of months and you're going to get first page, here's what we call those people. We call them liars, okay? Because you, by definition, cannot catch a guy at mile 17 of the marathon when you just started within a month or 6 or 12, okay? Does that make sense? Ongoing, pay-per-click. It's critical, critical. Here's what a lot of people say. Oh, I don't want to do pay-per-click. I tried it, it didn't work. Or that's a bunch of crap. Pay-per-click and I don't get any leads. Okay, we're going to talk about how to make it work. But I just want to put this out to you right now. You have got to be involved in pay-per-click. If you say, I don't want to do it, or I'm not going to do it, or it doesn't work, or any other combination of those kinds of words, you are fooling yourself, you're misinformed, you've had a bad experience. You know, it's like the guy that goes through a nasty divorce and he says, oh, I'm swearing off women forever. Really? All women everywhere are suddenly horrible? No. There was a horrible situation, but there's good situations out there. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Most of your internet leads will be driven from somewhere else, using your budget. Here's a case study. I won't go into detail because we've got lots of things to cover and I want to get moving here. This is a company that I was looking at last week in that marketing summit that I was attending. This company got 29% of their sales came from people that were searching for their company name on the internet. Here's what that means. I want you to really, really internalize what's happening here. This means that 29% of all the sales of this company is a very large company. Here's what this means. 29% of everybody that buys something from them went to the internet and searched for their company name. because they already knew their company name. They either saw it in an advertisement, they heard it on the radio, they saw it on television, they got a piece of mail, whatever it was. They have this massive engine that's pushing people to their website. And if you don't have a massive engine pushing people to your website, yes, the internet is important. But if you don't have an engine pushing people there, and to our point right now, if you're not spending the money to get people there, guess what? Nothing happens. And you scratch your head and you go, I got this great website. What's going on? Oh, this isn't working. And you start crying. And I look at you and say, well, of course it's not working. You got to pour some gasoline in that engine, buddy. Okay. Now, here's what a lot of people say. Well, I don't have enough funds. I can't spend that much money. 10%, I can't spend that much money. I'm going to tell you this right now. I categorically refuse to accept that you don't have the budget to spend 10, 12, 15% on marketing. You don't. If you say you don't, here's the solution. It's real simple. Raise your prices. That's it. Raise your prices. Well, we can't sell for more money because people already give us price injection when we got competitive prices. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. It's all about marketing and sales. If your salespeople suck, it's going to be hard to sell. If your marketing sucks, it's going to be hard to get leads and it's going to be hard to sell. If your marketing is good, if your salespeople are good, then this is not going to be an issue. Here's a case study for you. Kitchen and bath remodeling company. This company started in 2008 in a major city. 2008, they started from $0. In 2007, they did zero. In 2008, they started up. Here's what they did. They raised their prices by 15% on 4 separate occasions. In other words, they went out and started to sell, and they thought, wow, we need more money for more marketing and for other things that we want. So they raised their prices by 15%. Here's what they noticed. It had no effect on their sales, so they raised it by 15% again a couple months later, and they found that it had no effect on their sales, so they raised it by 15% again, and they found it had no effect on their sales, so they raised it by 15% again, and guess what? Here's what happened. Their prices went up by 75% in less than 2 years. 75%! Something that used to cost $10,000 for bathroom remodel, for the exact same bathroom remodel, they are now charging $17,500. And here's what they did. They poured extra money into their marketing, and they made profit. They made profit. 5 people of their sales team went to Bora Bora for 10 days because they sold enough, and there's enough money in this. Their marketing, this is a company, I didn't put this on the case study. That was 2008 when they started. In 2013, $12 million in sales. 2014, $12 million in sales. Now, the reason they stayed flat at $12 million in sales for 2 years is because last year, 2014, they retooled a lot of their systems in their company to allow them to be able to handle $20 to $25 million in volume. And this year, they're on track for $20 million in volume, and their prices are the highest in the market, and they are killing freaking everybody. Are you following me? You say, well, I don't know. That doesn't apply to me. Okay, well, maybe that doesn't apply to you. I'm not sure if that applies to you or not, but I'm not sure how that would possibly not apply to you. Case study number 2, HVAC contractor. They charge $12,000 to $13,000 for a new system. Typically, most people in the market are charging $5,000 to $8,000. There are ads that run in the paper every single day. Full system installed, full warranty, $5,995, $6,000 basically. These guys are charging $12,000 to $13,000. It's the same equipment. It's not a different brand, but their company's better, their service is better, their warranties are better. 39 things about their company are better. Here's what else is different about their company: twice as expensive. Not 50% more expensive, not 75% more expensive, twice as expensive. Oh, we can't sell it twice as expensive. They spend 10% of their next year's anticipated revenues on marketing, and they don't chicken out. In other words, they get to the end of the year, they don't look back and say, well, here's how much we did in revenue this year. Maybe let's put 10% of that towards next year. No, they look at next year and say, how much do we want to make next year? Let's spend 10% of that so we can go out and chase it. That's what they do. They own the market. They're 3 to 4 times bigger than the next biggest competitor. 3 to 4 times bigger. But guess what? 100 times bigger than their average competitor at double the prices. You still, I don't know if that applies to me. I'm not an HVAC guy. Okay, we'll go back to the kitchen and bath remodeling guy. It doesn't matter. If you raise your prices, you will have the money that you need. And a lot of this price resistance is between your ears, and that's something that's a bigger topic, okay? Here's how to spend the money in this order. Number one, spend money to create an identity, okay? Now, this is something we're not going to cover on the webinar. I've covered it in extreme detail on lots of webinars I've done before. Here's what I'm talking about. The ability to separate your company, to explain in clear, concise terms with power, precision, and passion who you are, how you're different, why you're better, and why people should do business with you instead of your competitors. It has to be communicated in all your advertising, all your collateral material, certainly on your website, at the home shows, etc. If you don't have that in place, everything else you're going to do is going to suffer. So that's number one. Next, spend whatever it takes to get a good website. And I'll talk about some elements of good websites in just a minute. We're not going to dwell on it, but that's one of the things that we need to look at, okay? Spend as much money as you possibly can on pay-per-click, and I'm going to talk about that here in just a second. Next, spend as much money as you have to on SEO. Now, what do I mean by as you have to? Well, it's going to cost you more money on SEO if you're in the middle of a big market and it's very competitive. Remember, if you're at mile 2, now I'll give you an example. I work with a company out of San Angelo, Texas. You probably never heard of it because it's a little podunk town that's near Abilene, which is podunk all by itself. And they sell windows, and in that market, there's only 2 or 3 companies that sell windows. So by default, they automatically show up on the first page just by existing. That's probably not you, okay? So you may have to spend a little bit more. In my experience, you're going to need to spend anywhere from about $300 or $400 a month on SEO up to about $1,000 to $1,500 a month on SEO, depending on how big your marketplace is, how competitive it is, how many competitors there are, etc. Generally, it's about $500 to $600 to $700 a month, okay? Spend all the money you can on direct response vehicles that can validate their effectiveness. Spend money on intelligent mailings. We'll talk about that. And then finally, spend money on branding. And that's sort of the outline for what we're going to talk about for the rest of this webinar, okay? So one quick element, and then we're going to get on to that pay-per-click. Let's talk about dividing and conquering. Think about your own buying habits. What I'm talking about here is companies that sell multiple services and trying to cram them all into one single advertisement. Just because you walk into Home Depot doesn't mean you want paint and tools and carpet and light bulbs all at the same time. Now, you might want those things at different times, but you usually don't want all of them at one time. That's your own personal buying habits. Why would you think that just because you sell windows, somebody automatically wants siding or they automatically want a roof? Usually they don't. If you try to shove everything you sell into an advertisement, it's not always the best choice. Now, sometimes it can be a good choice. I'm going to give you some distinctions here in a minute, but I want you to consider dividing in some elements, okay? Think about how pay-per-click advertising works. It's based on keywords, okay? You wouldn't try to attract a siding buyer with window keywords. You wouldn't. You wouldn't take a siding buyer to your window page. You just wouldn't do that. So here's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we focus in our advertising so that the message is easy for people to understand, so that we're not jumbling people's brains with a bunch of information that's hard for them to line up and make sense of. People who are thinking about windows could usually care less about siding. Focus your lead generation efforts on one main thing, okay? Now, 2 things we're going to talk about, then we're going to move on. The first one is advertising. The second one is home shows, okay? So if you do home shows, listen up. I got some good advice for you. Let's talk about advertising first, though. Here's my advice to you. 1 major focus per advertisement. Now, that focus could be a strength of your company, or it could be a product, okay? A strength of your company would be something like your warranties or your expertise or your attention to details or your lack of sales pressure. A product would be, hey, here's our windows, here's our roofing, here's our siding, here's our kitchens, here's our bathrooms, etc., okay? If you're focused on company strength on a particular advertisement, you can mention all of your various services, okay? And I'll give you an example of that here in just a second. If you're focusing on products, okay, let's say you're focusing on roofing, well, then don't cram 2 products into one ad because it starts to be confusing, okay? Let's listen to some examples. I'm going to give you a couple radio ads to listen to here. Let me pull this up. And, wow, you think I would have had this up already? And I almost do, so it'll just take a second here. Okay. Okay, here we go. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to listen to two ads. One of them is going to be focused on a strength of this company, okay? The strength of the company is, in this case, well, you'll hear it. It'll make sense to you. And then we're going to listen to the same company, a different radio ad that's going to focus in on roofing, okay? So here we go. First of all, strength of the company.
Hi there, Robert O.J. here from Easy Home Solutions, and I want you to know when it comes to windows, siding, and roofing, it's all about respect. Respect means answering the phone when you call. It's showing up on time. It means no sales pressure, no pricing games, and no crazy buy it right now or the price doubles tomorrow discounts. Respect means that we'll find out what kind of roofing, siding, or windows is right for your situation on your house and within your budget, then giving you multiple products to choose from instead of trying to force you to buy whatever makes us the most money. Respect is a mindset and a way of life. I learned it from my mother, and it's the #1 quality I look for when hiring employees. If you need roofing, siding, or windows and want a company that will respect your time, your property, and you as a person, give us a call at 314.
Okay, so we don't need to hear the phone number, but you get the idea. So the concept there is respect. We talk about the different ways of respect. We use the word respect. If you were to ask a casual listener, hey, what was that ad about? They would say respect. But we also talked about windows, roofing, and siding. Now, here's an ad from the same company that focuses in on roofing. And I want you to notice that we don't try to cram all the other stuff into there. So let's listen to this.
Hi there, Robert O.J. here from Easy Home Solutions, and I want to throw a red flag on roofing salesmen who try to sell you a new roof after a storm. Red flag #1 is when they offer to pay your deductible or give you any kind of incentive, rebate, or anything. That's illegal in the state of Missouri, a big no-no, but sadly it's really common. If a salesman tries to break the law in your home, show them the door. Red flag #2 is pressuring you into signing a contract on the first visit. Really? What's the rush? Well, they don't want you to do any due diligence because you might discover they're from out of town. They have no reputation, and they offer tail-light warranties. At Easy Home Solutions, we honor all state laws, and we never pressure you into buying on the first visit. We give you time to check us out and decide for yourself. It's a better way, a respectful way. Give us a call at...
Okay, so this is just strictly roofing. We don't even mention siding. We don't mention windows. Now, we're going to get into a discussion a little bit later about what I call campaigning and making sure that over the course of a campaign of advertising, this is when we get into this branding discussion a little bit later. We want to make sure that we don't focus too much or too little on any particular point. Now, I don't want to focus too much on this right now because we've got a lot of other things to cover, but I do want to talk about this. Home shows. Spend the money to get separate booths for all of your various products, okay? Case study. It's the same company that I was talking to you about earlier that raised their prices by 15% 4 times. Same company. Went to the home show 3 years ago, had one booth, 20-foot booth. They crammed in there their bathrooms. They crammed in there their kitchens. They crammed in their countertops. They crammed in their cabinets, and they had success. The next year they went back. They split into 2 booths, 2 20-foot booths. One was kitchens and baths. One was countertops and cabinets. They finally went back the 3rd year. They split into 4 different booths. They split into a kitchen, into a bathroom, into a countertop, and into a cabinet booth. And every year they split, they increased their results by 50%, by 50%, by 50%. In other words, here's what happens. They were able to meet people and talk about the specific stuff that they wanted to talk about. And as they increased their coverage, more booths, with specific things to talk about at each booth, results went up. I'm going to strongly encourage you to do this. If you sell windows and siding, I'm going to encourage you to have a windows booth and a siding booth. If you do roofing and decks, have a roofing booth and a decks booth. This is a simple idea that does not cost a lot of money. Think about the amount of extra money that it costs to have 2 booths or 3 booths versus 1 booth. The answer is, obviously, it costs more, but it doesn't cost that much more relative to the increase in leads and results, okay? So think about that, file that one away, and act on it as appropriate. Next thing we're going to talk about is pay-per-click advertising. And, you know, again, this is one of those things, I just mentioned it earlier, that it's sort of a difficult subject for some remodeling contractors. It's not always easy. Why pay-per-click? Well, imagine that there's a stream where there's tons of fish. Would you rather fish there or a stream with fewer fish? You have to have the right equipment and the right bait. Here's what we want. We want to be able to pull fish out of this river with smiles on our face, and pay-per-click is the way we can do this. Remember, I talked earlier about the metaphor of a marathon, and I said, hey, what if in the marathon somebody else got a 2 or 5 or 10 or 17 mile head start? And we said, well, that would be a problem. Well, here's the interesting thing. The SEO, the search engine optimization, is going to take you a while to catch up. I talked about that clearly earlier. But here's what you can do. You can take a shortcut, which is the pay-per-click. You can actually pay to have your ad show up in the Google searches for the appropriate keywords, and you can start catching fish in that stream. If somebody looks at me and says, well, I've tried it and it doesn't work, I look at them and say, that's not really relevant, okay? It's not really relevant. The problems why pay-per-click doesn't convert, why it doesn't work, is fourfold. Number one, website doesn't convert properly, your budget's too small, you give up too soon, or you don't have the right type of campaign management. So I'm going to talk about these issues independently right now and go through them and give you some ideas, okay? So the first one is that your website doesn't convert. Here's some of the elements of non-converting websites. Keyword stuffing is a huge one. Now, keyword stuffing, if you're not familiar, that's taking the words that are associated with your products and the geographic words that are associated with where you live and littering your page with these words so that Google sees it and says, hey, this is an appropriate website for people that are searching in this area for these products. But keyword stuffing does not appeal in the least to actual human beings who are reading your website. Also, overuse of engagement tools, putting too many things on the website that says, fill out this form, get this brochure. I'll show you some examples of this. Also, no identity. If you look essentially like everyone else, your website has no discernible differentiation between yours. I'm not talking about the way it looks. I'm talking about what you offer, what you do, what you communicate, who you are. Then that becomes a problem, okay? Also, not enough social proof, not enough evidence. Do you have the online reviews, case studies, photo galleries, videos to separate, to help people see who you are, to see that you've got customers, people that like you, to lend testimony and evidence to the things that you're saying. If you're missing these things, then you're going to have a problem converting, okay? So again, people come to me and they say, we tried pay-per-click, it didn't work. The very first place we look is let's look at your website and see if it's actually set up properly to turn lookers into buyers, okay? Here's a good example of a engagement tool overload and keyword stuff. So if you look here, this company has get a price, view our special offers, minimum payment plan, sign up for our newsletter, download our free brochure, and there's, of course, also a phone number. And all of these things are geared towards getting people to interact with the website, which is good. That's a worthy goal. I'm not suggesting you should not have engagement tools, but here's what I am suggesting, that if you overdo it, and it's essentially the only option you give people, which is to engage with you through one of these engagement tools, it's actually a huge turnoff because they don't even know who you are, how you're different, why you're better, why they'd want to do business with you or hire you, and you're asking them to commit to contacting you and then going through a sales process. It's the online equivalent of walking up to a woman at a bar and saying, hey, would you like to go see my apartment? It's around the corner. You need a little bit more intro than that. You've got to be a little less forward. Again, is it appropriate to have a quote form on your website? Of course it is, but it can't be the only thing on your website. Now, let's look at keyword stuffing. This is from the website that you're looking at. Home windows installed by experts in Bridgeport, New Haven, Hartford, Danbury, throughout Connecticut, Eastern New York. Perhaps your home windows aren't opening or closing as you'd like. Maybe they're letting drafts in the winter. No matter what the case is, if you live in New Haven, Bridgeport, Stamford, or another community in Connecticut or Eastern New York, we've spent the entire first 20 seconds of reading working our way through the cities that they service. It's too much. It's keyword stuff. And it's not something that works well for humans. It might get you a temporary jump high in search engine optimization so your website shows up well, but it's not going to work in terms of conversion. I'm going to tell you something. You think, well, I don't really care because as long as I show up high in the search engine results, that's the main thing. Number one, no, it's not the main thing. If people don't call, then what's the point? Number two, even if they were calling based on a keyword stuff site, I'm going to tell you, if people go to a keyword stuff site and they look at it and they can't get into it and they have a hard time connecting and they navigate away, then Google over time is going to look at that and say, nobody likes this website. The bounce rate is incredibly high, and it's going to drop that search ranking, and it's going to be a negative. And I'm telling you, when you try to recover from that, it's difficult, okay? On the other hand, here's a good website. You've seen me show this one before. It's got a great identity, persnickety, demanding, hard to please, picky. Then I'm the remodeler for you. I'm not the fastest, I'm not the cheapest. I am, however, according to my customers, the best. It price conditions. It's a company with good high prices, but it also has all the elements of conversion. The free estimate is right there up front. The phone number is right there to see. The elements of social proof. Check our reviews out. 21 customer references. Our online portfolio. It's all right there for people to see. This converts well. Okay. Pay-per-click problem number 2. Budget is too small. The idea that I'm going to stick a toe in the water and see how it goes is like bringing a knife to a gunfight. You've got to have the appropriate tools, in this case, money, as you go. We've got tools that we use to estimate traffic and clicks. Okay, so here's what we know. If you spend too little, your campaign won't have a chance to properly optimize. You'll get poor results. Optimizing meaning simply understanding what the best keywords are and so forth. Here's a snapshot for a company in Kansas City that we work with, and I'll help you read through this. Recommended monthly budget for prominent placement, it's going to cost $4,150. Competitive, $2,770. For representative, $2,080. This is for the subcategories of bathroom remodeling, cabinetry, woodworking, kitchen remodeling. Okay, they estimate the platform that we use that there will be 120,000 keyword searches. The average cost per click is going to be $1.94, which is going to bring, a total number of people targeted to 2.5 million. But based on the budgets, if you look up here in the top box, if you spend the $4,150, the estimated number of visits is 2,140. 2,140 visits. Now, if you look down at the very, very bottom, it says amount of data we have about this business type, high. What this means is it's not a guess. This is based on literally thousands of clients across the country in these categories that we've done this for before, that they can look at and say, okay, we know that if you spend this money, you're going to get about this many visits. Doesn't guarantee it. It doesn't mean it's going to be exactly 2,140, but here's what it does mean. It means that it's going to be pretty darn close, okay? But you've got to spend the money. Problem 3, very closely associated, quitting too soon. It takes a little bit of time to determine the most effective keywords, the optimal bids for those keywords, discovering what the negative keywords are, which ads work the best. Your website also might require some tweaking and some fine-tuning. We've had this happen plenty of times where we get into the campaign and we're not getting the conversions that we want. We know that we've got the keywords right. We've gotten rid of the negative keywords, all the things on the top part of this page, but we've got to fine-tune sometimes the home page, and it makes a difference, okay? If you spend too little, going back to problem number 2, if you don't spend enough, then you don't give Google a chance to optimize this campaign, and you quit before you actually have a chance to succeed, okay? We recommend giving it about 2 months, sometimes 3, okay? And problem number 4 is improper management. Pay-per-click is like fishing. The concept is fundamentally so easy that literally anyone can do it. You can sign up with a Google AdWords account and you could be placing your own ads without knowing anything about it today. All you need is a credit card, okay? But don't mistake can do it for can do it well. A lot of contractors, in my experience, resist paying people to do it for them. But here's what you got to understand. You're going to pay for it one way or another, okay? So, well, I don't want to pay you. We use a platform called Reach Local, and it receives criticism from some people saying, well, not all of the money that I spend goes actually to the advertising. Some of it goes to the overhead and to the management of the project. Of course, it does. But here's what you got to understand. If you do it yourself, you're paying somebody, whether it be you or an employer or somebody, to do it yourself. And if you don't get good results, you're going to pay for that as well. We talked to a guy last week. The guy's doing great on pay-per-click advertising. Phenomenal results on pay-per-click advertising. We said, well, how much time do you spend on it? He says, I personally spend 2 to 3 hours a day managing it. Personally spends 2 to 3 hours a day managing it. Is that something that you have the expertise or time to do? Probably not. Probably not. Okay, so let's talk about direct marketing. Just quick wrap up on that last section there. Just a quick wrap up. Pay-per-click. You've got to spend the money on it. Typically, depending on your market and what you sell, it's going to be a few $1,000s a month. Now, go back to the budgeting discussion that we had earlier, which said if you spend 10% on $1 million company, you're going to spend about $8,500 a month on marketing. If you spend a foundational $1,000 a month to do search engine optimization, to have a website that works and to convert online reviews, some of those types of things that you've got to have, okay? If you spend $1,000 a month out of an $8,000 budget, that $1,000 is going to make the other $7,000 work well. Well, where should you spend the other $7,000? And the very first answer is on the pay-per-click marketing, okay? Now, if you're a $3 million company and now on a 10% basis, you've got $300,000 or $25,000 a month, well, then that pay-per-click is going to take, you know, something like, what, 20, 25% of your budget. Depends on how big of a service area you have, and it depends on how good you are doing. I mean, I know companies that spend $60,000, $70,000 a month on pay-per-click advertising because they cover large geography and they buy up all the leads that are possible, okay? Now, let's transition into a discussion about direct response advertising. And here's the question for you. Is it dead? Is direct response advertising dead? And here's the answer. No. No, it's not. However, it's a lot harder than it used to be, okay? It's just not as easy as it used to be. I don't think I need to have a major discussion about it's harder than it used to be. So let me give you a couple of tips. First of all, home shows, in my opinion, is a direct response media. So if you are not currently involved in home shows, I'm going to strongly recommend that you do it. We've got a home show package that works fantastic. We've never had it not work. It has never not worked. The home show package that we sell, it makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to go into it right now, but I just want to give you some encouragement that home shows can work. If you're not currently having success with them, maybe you can reach out to us, give us a call, and we can give you some pointers. That's not today's topic, though. Canvassing is also something, especially for smaller companies, just getting off the ground. It's direct response. It's hard to do, though. We're not here to have a canvassing discussion. Advertising, direct response advertising. Well, marriage mailers may be worth testing. This is your Val Pack and your Clipper magazine and those types of things. We've got one here in the local area. I'm sure you may have it in your place too, called RSVP. It's sort of a higher end type of a publication. They've got a magazine now. They do a card deck. Those are some things that you may want to test because they can be effective for you. People flip through those decks. They see, oh, geez, I've needed my kitchen remodeled. They pull it out. They either call now, maybe they call later, maybe they go to your website. But regardless, those things can be effective. But here's what you got to do. You just got to test them. I can't sit here on this webinar and tell you do this or do that or don't do this or don't do that. These are things that have to be tested. We've seen things work fantastic in one market that didn't work at all in another market. I've seen RSVP pull dozens of leads at a very low cost per lead, and I've seen it have crickets chirping for essentially the same type of ad for the same type of company. And you say, well, why is that? And the answer is, I don't know. But you can test it, okay? Test it. It's pretty difficult, and I'm not going to say impossible, but it's nearly impossible on radio, TV, and newspaper to do direct response, which is why we're going to push the discussion here in a minute over to branding. And I'm going to show you how branding can work for you on any budget. But let's take it right now and say for a direct response, it's going to be pretty tough, okay? Direct mail can work, but you've got to be smart about it, what we call intelligent mailings. Here's the good thing about direct mail. It gives you precision of targeting better than any other media, better than newspaper, better than radio, better than television. I can mail directly, specifically to the people that I want. So I'm talking about things like sit-no sales, or some people call it a pitch and miss. This is the prospects that you talked to but didn't convert. Current customers, proximity or radius marketing. New movers is a ripe field. What I call situation-specific farming. In other words, you go into a specific neighborhood that has specific need for specific types of products, and you can start to farm them over time. And this is going to be sort of a hybrid direct response branding campaign. We're going to talk about branding here in just a few minutes. But these are some of the intelligent mailing areas. There's also something called prism coding. I really don't have time to talk about this, so I'm just going to skip it. Sorry. Here's the key, though, with mailing. If your mailers are hitting prospects consistently and frequently, people are going to notice you. It's more cost effective than you think. Now, here's what I found. The cost per 1,000 CPM is pretty expensive, but the targeting compensates for that. So in other words, if I go on the television, I can usually achieve, depending on how well I negotiate, depending on the market, I can achieve a cost per 1,000 people reached of somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 to $7 per 1,000. Okay? Think about that for a minute. I can reach people for $2 to $7 per 1,000 people reached. Now, on mail, I'm going to be spending about 35 cents per piece, and that's going to come out to about $35 per 1,000. Okay, $35 per 1,000 versus, is that right? 35.35. No, it's 350. I mean, it's tremendously more expensive. But here's the good thing, though. I can narrow it down, and I can hit just the people I want to hit. So it does compensate. Let me show you an example of a mailing campaign. This is for the remodeler with the fantastic identity. So we start sending these out to specific neighborhoods that we know have homes that are a certain age that are just really becoming ripe for kitchen remodeling, okay, and bathroom remodeling. And we send these out, and they're identity-based. I shut down the job site, started over again from scratch. Me and not done exactly right, don't get along very well. I'll go through these quickly, okay? Your remodeling done right, dang it. Don't worry, this crankiness is directed at my work crews, not you. And then we send this one out later. Most remodelers hate dealing with high-maintenance customers who complain about wanting every little thing a certain way. Those are the only kind I get along with. Persnickety, demanding, hard to please, picky, then I'm the right remodeler for you. One time I shut down a job site for 3.5 hours while I scoured 6 different suppliers for the exact right cabinet handles. Meet the most persnickety man in remodeling. If you paid $43,000 for a new kitchen, aren't 1,000% thrilled with the results, don't come crying to me because there's a 0% chance that I did the job. I was shocked and embarrassed when I found out remodeling was complained about. Who do you trust your kitchen to? Our last BBB complaint was never. Who do you really want the cheapest bidding remodeler on your kitchen? Okay, introducing the ultimate peace of mind, our money-back guarantee. There's a reason remodeling contractors can't be trusted. 3 measly references. We'll give you, hundreds or thousands of references. How to turn your $40,000 dream kitchen makeover into a $57,000 disaster. Hire a contractor. Okay, so you see, we hit these guys again and again and again and again and again and again. But let's run the numbers on this. First of all, you have to identify areas that you know are right for your kind of remodeling. Okay, again, homes of certain age that are in neighborhoods that are hitting that age where they're ready to be remodeled. As an example, if you're a roofer, it could be areas that were hit by storms. If you sell sunrooms, it could be senior citizen type communities. Let's say that you spend $5,000 a month on this. Again, this goes back to budgeting. How much money do you have available to spend? If it's $5,000 a month, these postcards cost about 35 cents each. You can send about 14,300 postcards. We divide that by 4. We're going to hit these people every single week. That's 3,500 homes. That's 3,500 homes in your sweet spot that'll get 1 postcard a week for an entire year. Okay? Postcards have identity, powerful language, visual appeal. If you can convert 1% after 1 year, that's 35 jobs. At an average job of $25,000, it's $875,000 in sales. Marketing cost was $60,000 for the mailings. It's about 6.8%. Okay? Consistency and frequency is the key, and this is sort of a transition as we get into the discussion on branding. Now, let me just give you one word about every door direct mail, and then I'm going to actually have Tim Mush from Market Sharp tell us a little bit about how his Market Sharp platform can help manage some of the mailings, okay? Every door direct mail is something you may have heard of. It's heavily promoted by the post office. It's an inexpensive way to generate leads. We prefer to use saturation mailings, okay? They cost about 35 cents a postcard. It's a little bit more than an every door direct mail. That 35 cents includes everything, including creating the messaging, create the design work, printing, lists, postage, managing everything. You just pay for it, but it's actually going to be more likely to be delivered. Here's the problem that we've seen and found in every door direct mail. Now, I want to be very, very clear. I am not accusing the United States Postal Service of wholesale mail fraud, but I am accusing the United States Postal Service of sort of being a Newman about things. Because here's what you've got to understand about every door direct mail. The reason that it is so cheap is that it is not addressed. It is only given out on a carrier route basis. The postal carrier, the Newman, the guy driving the truck, is given a big stack and is told, put one of these in every mailbox. So if he is a Newman and not feeling particularly, diligent that day, he may ditch that and never deliver it. And we've heard credible stories about dumpsters, recycling dumpsters full of every door direct mail. Or I'll give you one more example. This is at my own home last week. I went out to my own mailbox. I grabbed my own mail, and my mail was wrapped with a postcard that was an every door direct mail postcard. In other words, they took the postcard, wrapped it in half, and stuffed my regular mail in it, and they put it in my mailbox. This is because it was not sorted by the computers into the mail piles. It was grabbed by the mail delivery guy. I'm telling you, this can be a huge problem, okay? Deliverability is a major element of success in direct mail. And if you don't have deliverability, then everything else kind of doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what your message is, et cetera. So it's just a little warning to you about every door direct mail. I'm sure some of you might, pipe up and say, hey, we've done it. It's worked well. That's good. We've also seen areas where spending a little bit more money gets significantly better results, okay, just based on deliverability. So here's some of the kinds. Again, I already put this out there. Now, we're going to talk about branding here in just a second. But before we do that, I want to bring our sponsor, Market Sharp, onto the call. And Tim, are you with me? Hello, Tim. Earth to Tim.
Hello, Rich.
Hey, Tim. How you doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Just so that everybody knows, we've got one more major segment of this webinar. We're going to talk about branding. So if you'll hang on for that, we're going to talk about branding. Then we're going to go through a couple of offers that we have for you at Monopolize Your Marketplace. We'll also do the book giveaway. But right now, I want Tim, if you'll talk to us a little bit about Market Sharp. I'm going to bring some slides up for you here. There we go. And I'm going to hand it over to you for just a minute.
I had a couple thoughts come together, when you mentioned what you were talking about, this straight talk concept, and you gave me the bullet points of what you're talking about here. And one thing that came to mind on the next slide is a statistic I saw recently that kind of just struck me by this organization called Velocity Market Research. And what they said is this. They said lead conversion is determined 57% by lead quality and 43% by sales process. Now, don't get too hung up on that number or those numbers as to whether or not you think they're in line with the way your business works. But the fact is, when we're talking about converting leads, there's two things that are important. First off, yes, the quality of the lead is important. And secondly, the process you go about to sell it and or follow up on it is also important. And we've got to figure out a way to handle both those. So at Market Sharp, we think there's an app for that. And we love the term on the next slide of what we call micro-marketing. And Rich talked about a lot of that stuff. He talked about intelligent mailings and so forth. And the next slide points out really what I think marketing is all about nowadays. It's balancing off this online and offline stuff that's going on. Rich, you made a great case talking about the situation where you've got this great website and so forth, but if you're not feeding it with a marketing machine and getting people to go to it, you're going to have some trouble getting lead conversion. So online, offline balancing is great. And you mentioned the term intelligent mailers. We created something here in Market Sharp over the past couple of years I think is just really cool. It's called Smart Mail Plus. It's really designed to help you market your neighbors around jobs, which we all know we should do. And it works pretty simply. All you do is you click a little link in the Market Sharp customer section. Once you get a customer and you say, hey, I want to do a job around that brand new customer of ours, automatically all sorts of things start happening. First off, you get an email that says, hey, you really want to do a campaign around this job? And you say, sure do. And then you get a link there that allows you to click Facebook and or Twitter, and it'll update your Facebook page and your Twitter page with pictures of the job you just completed, information about it, a link to a landing page about the job. In addition to that, postcards get printed for you with pictures of the job and or your brand new customer in the neighborhood. And then there's multiple response mechanisms on that postcard that they can respond. And the whole point is to try to drive them with that offline marketing, that postcard, to online. And automatically a web page gets created for you in the lower left screen here that again has pictures of the job, a map to the home from the recipient of the postcard's home so they can see the job. And then there's a call to action there. It might be a consumer guide. It might be any one of 3 or 4 or 5 different calls to action that you want to use. But here's the cool thing about how technology makes this work well. With that postcard, let's go back to that slide, Rich. With that postcard there, every one of them has a code on it unique to the homeowner that's receiving the postcard. So when they get driven to that website with curiosity, they put in their code. They have to. And what happens is we know they're there. Even if they don't fill out the response form there to request a consumer guide, they get an email that says, hey, you got a lead. This person just was on your page. Even if they left right away, you know they're there. If they respond and fill out the form and request your consumer guide or whatever the case may be, you get a separate email that says you got a hot lead. And, of course, you follow up on that one also. So technology makes it easy to do really intelligent or smart marketing around jobs. Now, we don't sell every job we go out on, so I'm finding that's what's critical out there is the ability to set follow-up on cruise control. And there's a term in marketing nowadays called lead nurturing, and you can put all this on autopilot. Let's say you get a presentation, you don't sell the job, you can come back and just say, hey, the appointment result is a demo maybe, and that'll trigger all sorts of communications with this particular homeowner over the course of the next few months, year, or however many you want. Could be automatic emails, some direct mail pieces, phone calls. You're going to capture some business that really wasn't ready to buy when your salesperson was there on night one. But we find that 60% of these people do end up buying a similar project from somebody within a year. So let technology help you do that. So next slide is really going to talk about something really important. And as it relates to today's content, we're talking about knowing your marketing numbers. If you look at the bar chart in the bottom right, that's just a bar chart of where your leads are coming from. And the next screen is going to show you more specific stuff that tells you things like, okay, here's a little snippet from a marketing report that's telling you from this given lead source, telemarketing, TV, direct mail, pay-per-click, SEO, whatever you want, it's telling you how many inquiries you got from that lead source, how many turned into appointments, how many were issued to salespeople, how many sold, how many were net sales. And then on the far right, a very important number, net sales per inquiry. Meaning every time you get an inquiry from that lead source, it means this amount of revenue to your company. Really puts you in a position to make great decisions of where to spend your marketing dollars. So let's go ahead and look at the next slide. And we got some pretty cool resources for you. If you will write down this webpage, marketchart.com/resources, got some pretty neat things related to today's topic. The next slide is going to show you a little bigger picture. And the one thing I want you to make note of is that marketing planning spreadsheet there. And that's going to help you with this budgeting stuff that Rich talked about earlier. And it's really neat how you just click on that first button there that says annual breakdown, and you put in like 10 answers to some questions, and it will go ahead and help you plan out your marketing on an annual basis, meeting your needs to achieve your sales goal. And then it breaks it down into monthly, so you can go ahead and see that, yeah, I really do need to budget 9.6% of my revenue for marketing to achieve the leads I want, or whatever the case may be. There's all sorts of other resources on this page, but the one I think we want to focus on based on today's content is that marketing planning spreadsheet. This stuff is just free, so go get it and use it, and I think you'll find it useful. So let's wind down here, Rich. At Market Sharp, we really love to talk to anybody that's interested in learning more about everything we do. This particular list is not complete, but Market Sharp does a ton of stuff to help you manage, generate leads, and then manage them. Then, of course, manage your customers, your production, and all that kind of stuff. So reach out to us either at marketchart.com or at the phone number on screen. And Rich, I think maybe you have a poll to kind of ask if anybody's interested in learning more about Market Sharp. We'd love to, have a time to spend maybe 45 minutes with you online and give you a view of what the program does and see if it's a good match. So why don't you go ahead and get the poll out there, and then I'll turn it back to you, and you can wrap up with your final point on branding, Rich.
Okay, thanks, Tim. I do have the poll launched right now, so I'll give it just a few more moments. So if you will please fill out that poll. And while that's happening, we will start to transition into branding. All right, I'm going to give you 10 more seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 3.5, 3 2/4, 2, 1. Okay, thanks so much. All right. Let's, and by the way, I just want to thank Tim one more time. Again, 10 years as a sponsor. It actually goes back, I don't know if you remember this, Tim, to April 26th, 2005, and here we are just at 10 years later, and it's been a fantastic relationship. I want to thank you for being a part of that.
Oh, you're welcome, and I agree, Rich.
Okay, well, let's continue here with this last one. We're going to take it into the home stretch. This last segment's just going to take a few minutes, but it's a critical one. We're talking about branding, and we're getting into a discussion of media advertising. And here's what I need you to know first and foremost, before we even get further into this, is media advertising inherently, it's inefficient. Okay, you don't want to jump in here first. If you remember earlier, I showed you where do you need to be spending your money. There's a foundational amount of money you need to be spending on search engine optimization, online reviews, getting your website where it needs to be. Then we talked about pay-per-click advertising, how that's fundamental. There's leads to be had. It's like fishing in a stream where there's lots of fish to be had. And then the intelligent mailings. But now we get into this idea of media advertising. And most people know this. Media advertising is inherently inefficient. Talking about radio, TV, also could be newspapers, things like that. A lot of people who see your ads are not prospects. The majority of people are not ready to buy right now. Okay, they're going to buy sometime in the future, but you need to be thinking in terms of future buyers, not immediate sales. Okay, this is the beginning of branding. The beginning of branding is putting our message out there without expecting an immediate return. It's the difference between hunting, direct response, and farming, which some people call branding. Some of the expectations you need to have for branding, first of all, don't even try it unless you've exhausted all the dollars that you can spend on pay-per-click, SEO, and direct response, the things that we've already talked about up until this point. At first, you need to spend about 25 to 40% of sales on advertising. This is a heart attack inducing number. People look at this number and they just about die. They look at it and they say, there's no way, I can't afford it. But here's what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to invest this money so that moving forward, it actually works much more efficiently for you. As a market becomes more familiar, you're going to pull more leads. The cost is going to drop. It's an investment. You have to plan first, then you have to reap, okay? This is how the big get bigger and the small stay small. But I want you to understand something here. I don't want to just take the word branding and throw it out there. I want you to think more in terms of this. You might want to just jot this down. Branding with a purpose. Branding with a purpose, which simply means branding that not just so people know who you are and that you exist. That's what the advertising gurus call awareness. What I want people to know is that you exist, but also who you are, how you're different, why you're better, why they should call you when they finally have that need. That's branding with identity. It's identity branding. Small businesses usually start out with all of their dollars in direct response. I'm going to encourage you to start farming immediately by allocating a small portion of your budget to nurturing ads, at least 10%. So let's go back to our example. Let's say that you've got a $10,000 a month budget, $10,000 per month, okay? You're going to spend some of that foundationally on your website and in the search engine optimization. You're going to spend some of that, like we talked about, on pay-per-click. I'm asking you to take $1,000 of that and spend it on advertising on the radio or television. You say, well, I don't know if I can do that. Is that even enough budget? Here's the answer. It is. You've got to start somewhere, so start there, okay? Over time, this is going to increase. Eventually, you might get as high as 75%. That's pretty much on the highest end. 50%, 60% is more typical for mature companies that have been doing it for a while. But here's what we want. We want to be driving low dollar per impression advertising messages to flood the market and start to nurture the market so that when people have that need later, they already know who you are. So let's talk about where do you spend it. Here's my advice. Start with radio and TV. You want to consider your ability to target your market, achieve a low cost per thousand. And one thing you need to know about radio and TV, your ability to track results is going to be diminished. There's no way around it. You say, well, we'll put a certain phone number on the TV ads. Well, I got news for you. The majority of people that see your TV ads are not going to call you from the number that they see on the TV ad. They're going to go to your website and they're going to call you from your website. You're going to lose some ability to track. Remember I talked earlier about a company and I said 29% of all of their dollars that they earn are coming from people that are searching for their company on the internet? That's where they're coming from. They're coming from giant radio, TV, billboard budgets that are out there pushing people onto the internet, okay? Let's talk about radio. Radio is a great place to start. And I know people say, you know, just like pay-per-click, well, we tried it and it didn't work. But if you try it as a direct response lead generating method, it's not going to work. It's not intended to work that way. That is not how it works. The way it works is it allows you to hit these people at a very low cost per thousand. Remember, direct mail was $350 per thousand. On radio, you can achieve about $2 to $5 per thousand. So from an efficiency standpoint, it's what, 70 times more efficient. Now, you're going to hit people that aren't as likely to be prospects, so there's some inefficiency in it that way. But from a cost standpoint, it's so cheap. And from a radio standpoint, think about this: in any given market, there are going to be probably about 3 or 4 radio stations that are a good fit for the people that you're trying to sell. About 3 or 4, not 30 or 40, not thousands like there are with websites, but about 3 or 4. And you can target in on those. You can put your message. If you don't have a lot of money, you can narrowly focus and say, well, we're just going to advertise on weekdays from 9 a.m. to from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Or we're going to just advertise on weekdays from 4 to 6 p.m. And you can narrowly focus your dollars if you need to. But you need to start getting that out there, because here's what's going to happen. Over time, people will hear it again and again and again. Remember, I showed you some examples earlier of some advertisements. People are going to understand who you are, how you're different, why you're better. It's identity-based branding. Radio has great credibility, great ability to target. The emotional appeal is giant because we have the ability to use voice inflection to convey emotion. A lot harder to do that in print and online than it is on radio. Okay, identity is easy to communicate. It's also fast and easy to get started. We can typically have radio ads written, recorded professionally, and on the air within about a week of starting to talk about it. Maybe 2 weeks, depending on how much negotiations have to happen with the station. TV, same as radio in terms of credibility, targeting, etc. But it's even more credible, but it's a little bit less targeted, because generally what we're going to do is we're going to put our clients on network news programs. Here's why. We, MYM, we are scared to death of DVRs. Now, we can look at all the data you want, and the sales reps will tell you that the DVRs are not an issue. It's not true. DVRs are an issue, particularly the intelligence on this is tremendous. That says that the higher that somebody's income is, the more likely they are to use a DVR, and they are going to use it frequently. Okay, and that's probably your customers. But it has such a huge credibility that TV can be fantastic. It is harder to get started. It takes longer. You've got to cut ads. You can't cut ads on the cheap. I'm telling you, don't do it. It's not worth it. You need to cut the ads the right way, but the credibility is huge. So there's where you should start. Now, if you've got a company and you've got a $20,000 monthly budget, and you're spending $1,000 on your foundational stuff, and you're spending $5,000 or $6,000 a month on your pay-per-click, and you're spending another $3,000 or $4,000 on intelligent mailings and direct response, then you might have $4,000, $5,000, $8,000, $10,000 a month that you can spend on identity-based branding. And this is going to start to drive your sales this year, next year, the year after. Okay, your goals: you want to hit your targeted market, minimize the waste. We're trying to talk to individuals on a consistent basis, okay? We want a conversation with them. We're price conditioning them. You want to sell for twice as much money like we talked about? This is how you do it. Communicate with passion, emotion. Identity is absolutely a must. It's not optional. It has to be done, okay? Think in terms of 2016, 2017 sales, not just the immediate sales. Brand building, awareness, building future sales is what we're trying to achieve with identity-based branding. Now, this is an example of a company. I want you to show what happens to the web visitors. Okay, from 2012 to 2014, January, 2 years, unique web visitors up from 2,100 to 4,200, a 95% increase. Phone calls from 249 to 433. We got a 74% increase in phone calls. You can see this month over month. It gets as high as 187%. It starts to settle in at 163, 174, and let's call it 160 or 70% increase in unique web visitors. Phone calls are up also. Forms, I don't have that metric on here, up high as well. Why? Because the branding, identity-based branding, is pushing people to the website. That's how you get big. That's how you really sustain your business now and for the long term, okay? You want to talk about lead generation? Spend your money on your foundational stuff. Spend your money on your pay-per-click. Spend your money on your direct response or your intelligent mailings, and then immediately start spending at least 10%, and then up to 20 as budget affords, 30, 40, 50%. that will drive everything else you do. Remember we talked about a lead engine that drives people to your website? We talked about gasoline. We're talking about nitrous oxide here, the massive turbo boost into that engine, okay? That's what we're trying to accomplish. You can easily run the pump with one little finger once the water starts flowing. This is how it works in terms of identity-based branding. You pump the pump, you pump, you pump, you pump, you pump, and you pump it, and you pump it, and you pump it, and it takes forever, it seems like, for that water to come out, and it's hard. You got to put your weight on it, but as soon as the water starts flowing, you can take one little finger and you can pump that thing up and down, and it's easy. But if you stop right before the water comes up, it goes all the way back down into the well, and you lose, okay? All right, we're going to wrap up now. I appreciate you being on this webinar with me. It's been a lot of fun. I am going to give away my books here in just a second. First thing I want to do, though, is I want to offer you something called a contractor lead generation and marketing audit, okay? You can see on here that there's 3 different elements of this. An identity discovery session, where we're going to talk to you about what makes your company unique and different and better. We'll help you identify those things and communicate it. A website conversion audit, so we can tell if your website is going to effectively convert lookers into buyers. If you're talking about pay-per-click advertising, you've got to have this audit done. And also a website visibility audit. Is it showing up from search? Is it showing up from pay-per-click? Is your website even findable by your prospects? And we'll go through this process. We'll let me show you some of the forms we create. A website evaluation. It's graded on a scale of 1 to 100. You can see here this one only scored a 29 based on social proof, engagement, identity, and evidence. Okay. We'll also put together a search engine optimization overview. It's graded on 21 different areas, positive or negative. We'll also do a keyword ranking. We'll show how you rank on various keywords. We'll show all this to you. It's free. All you've got to do is this. I'm going to show you how to do this. This is my website right here. Monopolize Your Marketplace, Marketing Solutions for Contractors. If you scroll down here on the right, you'll see Lead Generation Audit. You click on that. More leads, more conversion, more customers, more market domination starts now. And you'll see the same thing that was on the screen. And all you've got to do is go down here and fill out this form. Company name, and it's a long form. It has a lot of information we request because we need that information to be able to effectively do this lead generation audit, okay? So again, if you go to the home page, going back to the home page, and you just got to click on this lead generation audit button that's right there on the home page, okay? I'll put that back on there in just a minute. Before I do that, let me tell you some things that we have that we can help you with at Monopolize Your Marketplace. We have programs and services that help with the foundational things that you need to have to sell at the premium prices that we've been talking about. Remember that $1,000 a month that makes the other $10,000 a month actually work better? That's what we're talking about. It starts with your identity and then taking that identity and putting it into a website, okay? Then driving traffic to that website via organic and paid search, pay-per-click. It's exactly the formula that we just talked about. It's the first part of your budget. This is where it all starts. Then using mailing and advertising to grow like we just talked about. We do all this for a low monthly payment. We've got a bundle called Monopolize Bundle. It includes ongoing webinar training, creating the identity, website, creating it, building the content in the actual website, setting up the search engine optimization, doing the monthly maintenance for 2 years, mobile version of your website, unlimited updates of your website, managing your pay-per-click for 2 years, pre-positioning materials. It's $47,000 value. We do it for about $600 per month, which is about $29.99 down, about $600 per month, okay? And we do have a webinar special. We'll give you $500 off, so it's only $2,500 down, and an SEO upgrade to doing social media optimization. Over 2 years, we charge $10,000 for that. We'll include that for free. The bonus value is about $10,500. If you're interested in that, then you'll need to fill out the form that I just showed you. It's limited to the first 5 customers, okay? Now, I'm going to run a quick poll here. And while I run this poll, I'm going to choose the winners of the book. So let's do the poll. What is your interest in Monopolize Your Marketplace? And if you're interested in the bonus bundles, check that off. If you'd like to get the free lead generation audit, click that off. If you like both, click that one off. And while you're filling that out, I am going to go ahead and give away the book winners. So let me go over here to attendees. I do this in a very non-scientific but still random way. The first winner is going to be Michelle Norby. Michelle Norby, congratulations. You have won an MYM book, hardcover book. We'll send that out to you. The next winner is going to be Chad Asher, A-S-H-E-R, Chad Asher. You have won a book. Congratulations. And the third winner today is going to be Sandra Munz, M-U-N-Z, Sandra Munz. You are the 3 Monopolize Your Marketplace book winners. And let's go back to the poll here. And by the way, I'm going to take questions right now. So if you've got a question, please start typing that into the console, and I will take your question. And we will go from there. And I'm going to make just a quick note here. And okay, that's good. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll up here. All righty. And I'm going to bring this back over to the screen. Just as a reminder, if you'd like to participate, even if you filled out on the poll that you'd like to either get both or you'd like to get the free lead generation audit, we're going to ask you to fill out this form. So if you'll just go ahead and fill it out now, that would help us and you a tremendous amount. So just click on the lead generation audit icon on our website, and then go down here and start filling out that form. And it says here, you know, this $3,500 value will do all 3 for free. Okay, right now I will take any questions that you have from the webinar, and I will open the questions console. Okay, I have a question, branding with a purpose, great advice, thank you. It's not really a question, Marianne, but I would like to answer any questions that anybody has. This is a good time for you to ask them, go ahead. This is normally where we get a bunch of questions. Come on. All right, I'm going to do the old 3, 2, 1. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to create a question. If you don't, then we'll go ahead and end up for the day. Going once, going twice, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And okay, that's it. So thanks so much for attending. We will be posting this webinar on our website tomorrow, so look for it there, and we'll talk to you next time. Oh, wait. Are you doing any live seminars? No questions, but really liked your webinar. We're great at your convention, helped us so much. Oh, Marianne at You Build It. Yeah, we are doing any live seminars, Marianne. I knew I recognized that name. If you shoot me an email, I know you've got my email still, Marianne. We actually have a seminar coming up in Dallas in a couple of weeks that you may be interested in. So shoot us an email, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much. Bye now.